Okay, so this is Cyberfrog 2 Rekt Planet. Now, a lot of you, if you are like, avid watchers of my, content, especially on YouTube, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you'll know I'm a big Rippaverse guy. Absolutely love the Rippaverse. I do Braxcast every week covering the Rippaverse, and I've reviewed every Rippaverse book. You might think that, oh, since Ethan Van Sciver has this burning hatred for Eric July, that I'm going to rip this book a new one. I'm going to say it's the worst comic book ever made or anything like that. No, I'm going to be fair with this. I was a huge fan of Cyberfrog. It's what got me into independent comics. I really liked Blood Honey. That was basically the only one I read. Although there was also the Cyberfrog Warts and All Omnibus, all the 90s comics. I really enjoyed those. So I really like Cyberfrog, Trick Ron as a character. And when I read Blood Honey, I liked this book as well. So we'll get into, this book and why I like it. First of all, I think the strongest point with any book from Ethan Van Sciver is the art. He's really great at bringing about all this detail. You see in the Vespis, their hives that they build after they take over Earth. There's just a lot of detail and fidelity there. And it's really, really nice to look at. And Kyle Ritter is a great colorist. He brings out the detail in EVS's line work really well. And I think, this is the highlight of the book when you read it. Everything else, I would say, is much more like subpar compared to the art, especially just the way these panels are laid out. So I'll get into spoilers on this book. Spoilers alert if you care. The Vespis are sentient. They can talk. They're luring in people intentionally. They let the humans, restore their numbers so they can feed off of them consistently. So if you had in this scene these two Vespis communicating, instead of just doing that, to let the reader know that and then have that, your focus here is supposed to be, you can see it, on Trick Ron. If you can see, it's supposed to be on Trick Ron, but he's very much in the background. And what's on the foreground is these Vespis here. And you can't really, focus on, it implies, or I should say, it's a great place here to have the Vespis cue the reader into the fact that they know more than Trick Ron knows. And it really could be a great opportunity for foreshadowing later events in the story and explain why some things happen. Although those things do get resolved, I don't consider EVS to be this really good writer, because what Cyberfrog was in the 90s was this really unserious, sarcastic character that would, commit all these sorts of acts of violence against, nuns that were taken over by aliens, and Killer Bee and Benjamin Riley, a Deathfly. And all these sorts of characters with Heather Swain, and then afterwards he would have the chicken fry with Heather Swain and watch TV and play video games and do very much stuff that was emblematic of the unserious attitude of the 90s. And a lot of people like that, that fun, unserious style. And you have this shift with Blood Honey and Rekt Planet into turning to this very serious post-apocalyptic story. It's very much taking cues from The Walking Dead. It's not to say that you couldn't do this story well, that what EVS is going for, especially with art like this, because like I said, he's got fantastic art. And you flip through all this, it looks really well. There's a lot of detail in it. He definitely has some trials and tribulations, and I think some stuff flows pretty well together. But it's just not written as competently as I would want to. So you see Colin here, and he's like the leader of the community that Heather is living at. And he's not a character that I think is done rather well. You've got the introduction of Scorpion that felt a little bit awkward to me. But with a character like Colin, I think this, with Colin's character development, he's established as possibly being, having a couple screws loose, and he randomly kills a pig that's supposed to be a sow as a way to show his authority or dominance to Cyberfrog, because he doesn't like Cyberfrog. And you've got the fact that Lily, who is Heather's daughter, doesn't like Cyberfrog as well. and they warm up to, or she warms up to him a little bit too quickly because it's just something that just happens. So the character development, the fact that you have these things with, like Colin's character that are hinted at but never really shown to be like developing in this book, that doesn't mean they can't be developed later in this book or later in the series with Cyberfrog Free Red Extermination. It's just that there's definitely quite a bit of time in between the issues of these books where it's hard for me to be invested in this story and think, oh, those are things that can get resolved, when it's taking like several years between issues for these things to resolve, and or several years in between issues for the possibility of these issues in the plot to be resolved. So that's the way I feel about that. But again, this is really, like I said, really good art. The coloring is really good. There is some things with like backgrounds like these, especially like there's some like these like starry backgrounds here. Some people on the forums have said, oh, Kyle Ritter used like, stock assets to do the coloring for those backgrounds. Not really a big deal. It all looks really good to me. So I think visually this is a book that's on point. The lettering is really on point. Cyberfrog's got that classic lettering style he's had since the 90s that really helps with the immersion. So I think for a reading experience, this is pretty good. It stands on its own. It definitely has an ending that leaves you wanting more with, as we'll get into it, exposing the fact that the Vespers are much more sinister than we knew them to be before, and the fact that, Cyberfrog was given the ability to understand them, the people he can ally, or the others he can ally himself with, the fact that Salamandroid is back is going to help him, and the fact that Lily gets abducted by the Vespers and they have to go and save her. It's all a good setup for the third issue, Red Extermination. It's just how long that's going to be, the other things that need to be tied up and explored. I just don't think EVS is this super competent writer, and I especially think he's a little bit out of his depth with Cyberfrog, because it was initially an unserious satirical character that existed in the context of 90s comics, right? And now it's trying to be this serious post-apocalyptic story, and I just don't think he's got the chops to make it as good as his art is. And that's really the way that I feel about Cyberfrog, the main book, and I've got written reviews of Death Sting and Heartsick Horror as well. And these are the side books that came with the Cyberfrog 2 Rekt Planet campaign. And now both of these books are pretty good. So Heartsick Horror contains Heartsick Horror, which is just an explanation, or I should say, it's basically covering Heather Swain's marriage with, I believe it's, I know his name is Owen. I forget if it's Owen Benjamin. But his name is Owen. That's Heather's, or Lily's father. Explains how they get together, the fact that he goes missing. And it's a nice little story. It doesn't really add too much to the world building. And you've got a story called Bare Necessities, which has Colin in it. And it's, again, the art's done by Kane White. So, of course, it looks fantastic. If I can flip open to it. So this is some art from Bare Necessities, right? And of course, it looks fantastic. It just doesn't really give you that much in terms of world building. And the disappointing thing is Colin is in this book, and it doesn't really hint at Colin's more unstable nature and the fact that, he should be criticized for it and you should have other people in his community pushing back against him. It just, shows him as a character in this book. And it's not really something that I say is like really world building, when there was some more world building and character development that was warranted outside of Rekt Planet. Like, I don't think Rekt Planet could have did everything it should have done in terms of plot development, world building, and characterization. That could have been resolved with a story like Bare Necessities, but it just wasn't done like that. And I say the same for Heartsick Horror. Now, on the other hand, with Death Sting, I think this is definitely much more in terms of world building. It's fantastic because it explains where Salamandroid, that's Dudu Ron Ron, that's Cyberfrog's brother, where he is for the, and again, you got just this beautiful art here. So you've got this like wraparound cover. Looks fantastic. So EVS is a great artist. That's definitely something I'll give him. And this gives some story in terms of the aliens that created Cyberfrog and Trickron, or Cyberfrog and Salamandroid, and explains where Salamandroid goes, or Salamandroid's story from Blood Honey leading up to the end of Rekt Planet. It does a really fantastic job of that, and that was definitely an important thing. Salamandroid's a pretty important character for Cyberfrog. And I imagine going forward in the I don't know, the modern timeline, 2018, going forward, Salamandroid will be important. So to have, you know, his story from Blood Honey up to Rekt Planet in Death Sting, I think was a necessary thing. EVS did a really good job. Of course, you've got, you know, some great panels here with his fire. There's just a lot of detail in that. There's just a lot of detail that EVS is able to render, and his character designs really lend credence to the way that he likes to draw. So it really made reading this book a real pleasure. And of course, like I said, it did give some necessary characterization, or it filled in some gaps that were present with Rekt Planet and Blood Honey. But given all of that, I'm not the most confident one that I'll even get Cyberfrog 3 without bad All Caps Comics is fulfilling, but hopefully they get their stuff together. They get Cyberfrog 3 out to the customers at some point in the future, and it is a decent book. It's just given the, you know, the fact that the art is a lot better than the writing, I'm not confident that EVS can stay up to par with the writing. And as you know, he introduces more to the story, there's going to be more stuff that's missing and left out that'll just degrade the quality to the reader, but it will be pretty to look at all the while. But that's basically my review of Cyberfrog 2 Rekt Planet, along with Heartsick Horror, Bare Necessities, and Salamandroid's Death Sting. So basically just going over all three of these in one video, just outlining what I think of them. If you can find them at a decent price on eBay, probably would recommend doing that. Now, of course, if you don't like the way he's conducting himself online, you're definitely more than welcome to not buy that. But if you don't care about the drama, if you don't care about that, you're just looking for some good comics to buy, if you can find them cheap on his eBay store, I would probably go ahead and do that. If you like just well-drawn action comics and you don't care about the story being super, super good. But that's really all I have to say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and Joker is out. It's